Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show. Today, we are actually going to be starting a discussion on the Wondrous airship wave of 1896-97, the first part of a three-part series on it on my YouTube channel. So this whole saga is really quite interesting, hence the three videos, because, in my opinion, it really marks the end of one era and the beginning of another, regarding the belief systems around unidentified aerial phenomenon. If ancient fairy lore and modern extraterrestrial theory are two sides of the same coin, the airship wave is kind of like the edge of that coin, and it's a very well-documented edge at that. So this flap, because no bones about it, this has all the markings of a UFO flap, really started in California in mid-1896. Around August of that year, a hunter named William Jordan claimed that he encountered the mysterious airship, which would only start to hit papers about a month later, while chasing a wounded deer in the Tamalpais Mountains. It led him into a nearly 10-foot-high brush pile. UFO nests, anybody? When a man suddenly appeared and asked him what he wanted. So Jordan explained the situation, and the man told him that although they'd been there a month, they'd never seen a deer. However, the guy said that, if he would share the meat with him, then he'd help him find it. So that's exactly what they did. The two found the creature already dead a ways off and dragged it into the brush. Now, inside this brush fence, for lack of a better term, was a machine shop, 6 mechanics, and a nearly completed airship. So there's a lot to say about even just this experience. But truly, that is just the beginning to a very strange saga that would span a year in a good portion of the United States. About a month after the Tamalpais incident, on September 20th, an astronomer named Swift noticed an anomalous light about the magnitude of Venus over the Pacific Ocean. The following afternoon, he telegrammed his colleague, Professor Perrins, about what he believed may be a new comet. So, of course, when Perrins scanned the sky the evening of the 21st, the object was nowhere to be seen. In October, a report of a well-lit airship came in from Placer County. San Francisco, a strange object with a powerful searchlight, was spotted over the ocean by members of the mayor's household. And then in November in San Andreas, 2 women reported seeing a saucer-sized, no, not saucer-shaped, but saucer-sized object, a light in the sky which decreased in size until finally disappearing. Reports also began pouring in, mainly of these dim, dark objects with lights attached to them. You see descriptions of these things usually as cigar-shaped or egg-shaped, adorned with multiple lights and oftentimes exhibiting a commonality to current sightings, the powerful searchlight beam. Now, the amazing thing in many of these cases is that it was few and far between that you had a single witness event. Most of these cases involve at least a few people, with many of them occurring in front of many witnesses in crowded urban areas. One really good example of this was the case first spotted by Isaac Gow. He saw this bright light suspended from a dark object while in downtown Sacramento, and decided to tear down the street, alerting people that the airship was in the area. In this case, then, hundreds of people saw the object, including state officials. Now, though many of the reports detail a dark, vague object behind lights, as in later reports, there are details on some of these that aren't in others. For example, some accounts claim that the object had wings, or rudders, or water wheel-type appendages. There's a fish-like tail in one account. And then, in addition to all these sightings, there were other things being reported in the sky as well. Glowing spheres and saucer-shaped objects were reported as emerging from and sinking back into the ocean. One report from the south of Sacramento in late November talks of a large canvas sheet floating through the sky, while in other details a red fireball with white lights on the front and back, and that one was spotted by 2 ministers in Stanislaus County. Another account is of 2 bright red lights keeping pace with a freight train, and yet another tells of how the airship hovered low over a new hydroelectric plant before disappearing into a cloud. And the weirdness definitely doesn't stop with the craft. I mean, what's even more interesting is people spotting these craft in conjunction with occupants. Now, the whole story started with an account of occupants in contact. Of course, the hunter chasing the deer into their secret base. Not the deer's secret base, but the occupant's secret base. As the reports started tallying into the hundreds, other accounts of meeting or seeing people in the airships or from the airships grew as well. not only were there reports of music and voices issuing from the craft, but a lot of these accounts make reference to the fact that these voices seem to have a strange quality, like they came from a phonograph. And other people also claim to have seen people on board the objects. One particular account claims that 4 men operated the object by moving as though riding a bicycle. However, and here's the interesting thing, another witness to the same object claimed only to see a light within a globular glass, hanging below a cigar-shaped object. Again, this just brings up kind of the differences in perception that can occur. Very interesting. But then you have even more fantastic accounts of actually meeting the pilots of these craft. One such account comes from Comptonville, where a man named Meek claimed to have had a conversation with the bearded pilot of the airship that landed near his home. Another account deals with 2 fishermen who saw the craft descend into the water off the beach. 3 occupants waded into the water and dragged the object ashore and into the woods. Now, these 2 fishermen, Giuseppe Valenziano and Luigi Valdivia, decided to rush ashore with great difficulty. The surf was rough, landing was difficult, and kind of interesting then, considering that the 3 men from the airship had absolutely no problem. So, upon finally getting closer to shore, one of the occupants told them to be on their way, and threatened to use force if they stepped out of their boat. But the 2 fishermen stood their ground. From inside their boat, we can safely assume. The man went into the woods and came back about 15 minutes later, telling the gents to please follow him. So they did, and found the 2 other occupants standing at the edge of the trees. One of these was consistently addressed as captain. So after much talking with the captain of the airship, the whole while the 2 other men were working on repairs, apparently, Valenziano and Valdivia were invited to have dinner with the crew. And this they did, and then they were promised a ride in the airship if they waited for the repairs to be done. So of course they waited the several hours that it took for repairs to be completed. And then, here's the kicker, they were told that there was no possible way they could come aboard. And apparently the 2 fishermen had the distinct vibe after the fact that it had been a complete ruse, that actually the pilot and mechanics of the airship just didn't want them to have time to get away and tell everyone else where the miraculous airship was hidden. Now, beyond the actual sightings, a very important facet of this phenomenon is the beliefs that come about because of it. And I'll get more into this in part 3 of this video series, but for the time being there are a few points of interest directly related to the 1896 California flap. For one thing, as is the case with many reports of the unexplained, we have the classic case of general runaround that people trying to figure all this out had. And in this particular scenario, that involves patents for the miraculous invention. Several people came forward during the flap saying that they represented the inventor of the airship. One such account is that of lawyer George Collins, who was interviewed by the San Francisco Call, and claimed not only to represent some unnamed inventor, but also to have seen the airship and have knowledge of where it was hidden. And as is common practice for people involved, truthfully or otherwise, with other intelligences, the very next day he claimed that the account attributed to him was completely false, it was a total fabrication, that he had never seen the airship. However, and this is a big however, he did say that he was employed by the inventor, who gave him only a very vague, incomplete description of the craft. So, well, apparently Collins had talked too much. He was fired some days after this. His replacement was William H. Hart, a former state attorney general, who went on the record to say that there was not just one airship, but there were actually 2 airships, one each for the East and the West. Apparently, Hart came forward to offer the airship to Cuba in their fight against Spain for $10 million, as it had the means to carry 4 men and 100 pounds of dynamite. Evidence of military and political interest on the part of the phenomena? Question mark. And then, too, you have dozens of conflicting accounts and names for the inventor who, surprisingly enough, never came forward to claim his invention. Keep in mind that the only flying machines at this point in time in America were free-floating hot air balloons. I mean, people across the country had been toiling for a long time with various degrees of failure to make the so-called heavier-than-air flying apparatus. One of these people was a man named John Greaser, who had been working since 1880 to create one such machine. And he believed in 1896 that he was really close to a breakthrough. And then he saw someone else's airship hitting the headlines and destroyed all of his work. Now this is just evidence of how strongly people accepted as fact that there was an airship in the sky at the time. And then, as with current ufology, you have, unfortunately, hoaxes. Box kites and toy balloons were released consistently with the aim of discrediting actual airship sightings, and newspapers would often pick up vastly exaggerated accounts of fantastical sightings or meetings with the airship pilots. Another commonality to current times is one such headline from the day: Mars and Venus under suspicion, from the San Francisco Bulletin and Examiner, November 25th of 1896. Authorities who had not seen the object came forward to say that the planet Venus, or Mars, as the case might be, was likely the cause of the sighting of a large cigar-shaped dark object with 3 bright lights on the underside maneuvering over the city. And the pièce de résistance, on the 21st of November 1896, the Sacramento Record Union ventured to suggest that the object in question might possibly be swamp gas. Now, over the course of the original flap in California, hundreds of people saw mysterious objects in the sky, objects that ranged from fireballs, points of light, airships, and even one very strange square of canvas. Some among these contained occupants, and some of these occupants made contact. Whatever the phenomenon was, in California it really peaked in November-December of 1896, and then gradually faded away in January of 1897. Or maybe it just moved location, as we'll see in my next episode. So please tune into my next show where I will be discussing the mysterious airship, accounts from 1897. Also, you can tune in to my podcast on the Paranormal UK radio network, also called Just Another Tinfoil Hat. New episodes every other Monday, and you can download past episodes from Podbean. And if you also want to keep up with whatever else I've got going on, please check out my website and blog, justanothertinfoilhat.com. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.
Doing.